A shocking new revelation in the Epstein files shows that Donald Trump called the police on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in 2006 and said these people are evil. Now, we've heard the story quite a bit. Donald Trump famously kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. However, in these files, there have been many accusations about things Trump has done, which are horrifying. He's also been accused of working for Mossad, which is weird. But I'm not here to defend everything Donald Trump has done. I certainly think he should be widely criticized for his failed approach to the Epstein files, calling it a hoax. But there are some legitimate reasons as to why Donald Trump didn't want these files released. And I'm going to show you, so viewer discretion is advised. The point is this. There are many people being protected in the Epstein files that should not be. Very serious questions are arising from these emails. Why are they redacting some of these names? Donald Trump should never have allowed that. And I have questions about why he did. However, there's also innocent people falsely maligned in the Epstein files, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'll save their names for a little bit later, but a couple really good examples of people who are being seriously maligned. And Donald Trump was concerned, as was Dan Bongino and others, that releasing all of these files would result in innocent people being lied about, and it could be damaging to their careers. Now, that being said, there's a really easy way to deal with this, and that is, one, don't call it a hoax. Don't refuse to publish the documents. Don't lie about having them on your desk. And then just remove the stuff that is not credible and publish the stuff that is. The problem we have right now is that they're releasing literally everything. So innocent people who are popping up in these FBI Crime Stopper tips with ridiculous claims are getting maligned, and it's damaging for their lives and probably embarrassing. And then the criminals, they're still redacting. So listen, I'll tell you this. I can certainly defend Donald Trump when the story breaks that Trump had reported Epstein to the police in Palm Beach. And some have suggested in the past he was an informant against Epstein, which I think this may be proving that statement was at least correct, if not maybe overstated, but Trump certainly was calling the police. We can point these things out and still ask why it is that certain people are being protected. I can point out that Donald Trump has done some good things, but has still largely done bad on this. And there's a lot to break down here. So let's give you the God's honest truth to the best of our abilities, though sometimes we're wrong. I try. We have the story, of course, from ABC News. Ex-police chief says Trump told him, "Thank goodness you're stopping Epstein," in the 2000s. And for the love of all that is holy, this is ABC News, okay? Now, my friends, before we get into the news, we got big and exciting news. Go to castbrew.com and pre-order your Dr. Alex Stein's Big Booty Latina Love Potion. Alex Stein is not a doctor. It is guaranteed to spice things up in the bedroom. It is not guaranteed to spice things up in the bedroom. Those are the little disclaimers that we have. Check it out. It's a joke. I'm kidding. We called it. It's a coffee. It's cast brew. It's a medium roast. We're releasing it just in time for Valentine's Day. You probably won't get it on time, but we rush it as much as we could. And you can buy now. It'll ship on the 13th. They begin shipping on the 13th, Friday the 13th. And it's a gag where I was like, can we call it Dr. Alex Stein's Love Potion or something? And our lawyers are basically like, not if he's not a doctor. I'm like, what if we put directly under it, he's not a doctor? And they're like, yeah, actually, that's probably fine. So it's a joke. Check it out at castbrew.com. Support the show. Shout out to Alex Stein and his new spicy, it's a medium roast. I'm crazy. It's organic. So give it a shot. You'll probably like it. I got to be honest, it's just a medium roast coffee, and we're selling a funny bag. So if you like Alex Stein and you want to pick some up, I recommend it. Here's the news from ABC. They report a former Palm Beach, Florida police chief who investigated Jeffrey Epstein in the mid-2000s told the FBI he had received a call from Donald Trump at the time to say, quote, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this," according to an FBI account of an interview with an ex-police chief in 2019. The Miami Herald was the first to report the document. President Trump has repeatedly denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes and has said that he cut off contact with his former friend more than 20 years ago. Trump has claimed that he booted Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after discovering that he was poaching employees from the club spa. Yeah, and young girls. That was the issue. The police chief's name, Michael Reiter, is redacted from the document on the Department of Justice website, but the information in the FBI statement tracks with previously public information about Ryder's role in the investigation that began in 2005. Ryder's detectives were investigating Epstein for allegedly recruiting girls as young as 14 to provide massages that turned, yikes. The information about Trump's alleged call makes up just a small part of the 4-page FBI report summarizing Ryder's testimony in October of 2019, 2 months after Epstein's death. Donald Trump told Ryder that he threw Epstein out of his club. Trump called the Palm Beach department to tell him, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. The alleged call came from Trump in July of 2006, around the time the details of the police investigation became public, according to a source familiar with the timing. Trump told him people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. She is evil and to focus on her. Trump told Ryder that he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present and Trump got the hell out of there. Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein. The account of Trump's alleged call to Ryder, as summarized in the FBI document, has not previously been reported. After repeatedly sparring behind the scenes with local prosecutors, Ryder went public in 2006, expressing his displeasure with the local prosecutor's decision to take the case to a grand jury instead of charging Epstein directly. Ryder apologized to victims for the way the case had been handled by the prosecutor and then coordinated with federal authorities to launch another investigation of Epstein. He did not respond to a request for comment. Donald Trump is an innocent guy. He's a boisterous, lewd, and lascivious playboy, real estate mogul, etc., etc. I don't think he's the embodiment of evil. I don't think he is certainly a saint. I think he is a man. And people who are like him, who seek power, do things that are, I don't know. I had a conversation with some guys recently where they said, all these billionaires go nuts. And I said, no, they're billionaires because they're nuts. Something different in these people drives them to these positions, be it malicious or perhaps benevolent. But I look at Donald Trump and I see him as a man. And I see him as a fairly liberal guy who went Republican because liberals were kind of nuts. And he's fairly moderate. But he's where Democrats used to be. And that means you're going to find a bunch of bad stuff about him, talking about girls and grabbing air hoo-hoos and all that stuff. But I do not believe for a second these accusations they've made about him, like going to the island and doing these things. I just don't believe it. I really just don't. They have lied so much about Trump in so many different ways. And so I watch these debates. And honestly, you don't got to agree with me. Comment below. Of course, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Tell me what you think. And I'm going to give you my thoughts. And I hope the liberals out there listen to what I have to say. I'll start with the liable for sexual assault claim against E. Jean Carroll. The claim was made some 30 years later after a law was passed allowing old claims to be brought back up, reignite, but basically bypassing statute of limitations. She made the claim that Donald Trump exited, or I'm sorry, I should say, instead of going into his own hotel, went to the Bergdorf Goodman, where they went to the second floor, and there were changing rooms where no one noticed the most famous man in New York and this woman. They somehow gained access to a locked room where they engaged in adult activities for which she was not very happy about. Although part of the story does seem to be that she wanted to go with Trump, she didn't like how far it went. Now, the problem with this story is that she claimed to be wearing a dress that hadn't been released at the time. She didn't know how she gained access to a room or how no one noticed that Trump was there. It was seemingly not crowded, according to her story, despite being the Bergdorf Goodman, and Donald Trump's hotel was across the street. This, I'm sorry, makes no sense. But you say to me, but a jury said it did. Yes, because we are a hyper-polarized nation. And the people of New York largely do not like Donald Trump, and they vote Democrat. That does not prove anything. The only thing they've determined from this story is that a group of people who don't like Trump said he did a bad thing. Then they lie and claim one of the jurors was a fan of my show. No, he had testified that he had watched the show once. It's remarkable how much people lie. Is it possible Trump did this? Absolutely. But it's not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Then you have the felony charges. 34 counts of falsifying business records in furtherance of another crime for the first time in history without a unanimous decision on what crime was trying to be committed. How am I supposed to? But if you don't know this stuff, why would you think anything else? And this is the challenge I have. I know these things. And so I say Trump did not commit civil fraud. Deutsche Bank said he did great. They argued that he falsely listed. Let me just tell you guys, okay, so I know we got a lot more to get into, but I got to say this. Because I know these libs are going to be like, Tim's blindly defending Trump. I have stood with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie on the release of these files from day one, interviewed them, challenged Ro Khanna on calling for the unredacted release. Then he modified, agreed with me, and I agreed with him. He said they would remedy the bill so that they would not. And I am proud to say that my challenging on that was a factor in getting this done. I'm not going to take any credit. Give me 0.1%. I'll take it. My point is, when Thomas Massie said release the files, I said yes. When Ro Khanna said release the files, I said your bill is a poison pill that would unredact child abuse material, and you know Republicans can't vote on it. Ro Khanna did an interview with me where he said, that's not my intention. I hear what you're saying. We will remedy this. I said, thank you. He did. I had him back on him. He said, fantastic work. Thank you. And I respect that he made that change. I want all of this released and unredacted. But when it comes to Donald Trump, falsifying business records, despite the fact Donald Trump never gave the order or told the staffer to do it. That's right. Cohen testified he just knew that's what Trump wanted. How do you convict a guy on this? The civil fraud case. They said Trump listed his penthouse, which is 12,000 square feet, at 30,000 square feet. Fraud. In reality, Trump didn't actually do anything. Someone else drafted those documents, and the Trump organization gave their disclaimer to Deutsche Bank saying, do your due diligence. Some of this information may be incorrect. Check it. And Deutsche Bank checked it and said, we believe you're incorrect, and we're going to reduce the total loan amount for that reason. And the Trump organization said, sounds good to us. He gave them the loan. They built their buildings. Deutsche Bank got paid back and said, great doing business with you. And the state charged Trump with civil fraud. It's all fake. They arrested his lawyers, who should not have pleaded guilty because the charges got dropped. So I tell you this, Trump is no saint, but I find all of the accusations against him so impossible to believe for these reasons. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Joe Biden's the devil either. I will tell you that I think Joe Biden is a corrupt uniparty shill who has done bad things too. Let's read more. Talk about where we're at. So we've got this document. Eric Doherty says, files confirm Donald Trump blew the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein's disgusting activities in 2006 phone call. So here's the actual file. He knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. She is evil. So here's the actual document. Now, by all means, it's not definitive. It's not absolute, but I do consider this to be proof. And that means a lot. I believe, to me, this proves beyond a reasonable doubt for several reasons. And let me explain. Mike Johnson, the speaker, previously stated, kind of blurted out that Trump was an informant against Epstein. This was walked back later. And I surmised, could it be that Donald Trump's concern with the Epstein files is that he will be outed as actually working with the feds against many powerful people who might want to get revenge? I think that is still a possibility. Of course, liberals lost their minds, couldn't fathom the possibility. I'm not calling Trump a saint. Well, they recanted. Mike Johnson said, I didn't mean it like that. This shows probably where Johnson got that statement from. Inside a skiff, they probably knew all about this. And I wonder, Trump was in communications with this former police chief. Could it be that he did more than we even know from these documents? Let me ask you this. If there was an actual investigation in Epstein, they actually got charges against him. He got a sweetheart deal and was let go. If Trump talked to the Palm Beach police chief and said these things, which he said to the FBI, and again, why I believe that, because lying to the FBI is a crime, and I don't think a law enforcement officer went to the FBI and just made this story up. It's certainly possible, but Occam's razor would suggest the reality is just that Trump did this. We knew the story of him kicking out Epstein. We've got a statement now that goes back 7 years, apparently, where a police chief was imploring them to take Epstein down and said, Trump called us and talked to us about this. I think there's a possibility that Trump did a little bit more than that, and probably just a little bit. The end result of which, Epstein got a sweetheart deal. He was under the Trump administration and Epstein got arrested in the first place. Now, there's questions as to why Trump didn't want this released. And I have two principal theories. Well, there's 2.5. What I mean to say is, the first is, I believe Trump wants to wield the one ring, and that is the blackmail potential of these documents and the powerful people implicated. Trump gets them all. If Trump goes to Bill Gates and says, listen, this email from Epstein says that you got a, infection from some ladies of the night and accidentally gave it to your wife. That's actually what one of the emails says. Trump says, I will make sure nobody sees the email. What are you going to do for me? Did Bill Gates get proven to traffic girls or anything like that? No. Embarrassing nonetheless. And Epstein wanted $30 million. Bill Gates addressed this. I imagine Trump saw all of this stuff and said to these guys, you want me to keep this under wraps? You work for me. But there is a second reason, and that is the false accusations and malignment of innocent individuals. The reason I say 2.5 reasons is because you could argue one of those reasons was to protect himself from these same false accusations, but I'll lump that with the same thing. Trump knew he's falsely accused, and he knew many other people were falsely accused, and that's another reason to say we should not do this. But I'll tell you this. You should not be protecting these dirty scumbags. They should not be redacting or deleting the information about co-conspirators. We want those names released. Shout out to Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, still doing what needs to be done to get that information out. It should have never been withheld. And with all due respect to Dan Bongino, I like the guy. He does great work. And I'll defend him against all these people attacking him. I gotta say still, he did a terrible job on Epstein. That doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. My position the whole time is, listen, Dan has done tremendous great work on his show before joining the FBI. Clearly, he couldn't get the job done. Let's criticize him where he deserves it. I'm going to praise him and Cash for the street level stuff that they got done. But on Epstein, they flubbed it. Sorry, that's the truth. That's why people are upset. I still think Dan is a good guy. I still think he does great work, and I want him to succeed. On the DOJ, Epstein, FBI stuff, he wasn't able to pull it off. It breaks my heart. I'm sure he can argue a little bit and push back, but my perspective is Dan should not have come out and said, yeah, that Epstein killed himself. Should never have done it. For strategic reasons, for many reasons. It was ineffective. It generated animosity, made the story worse. Donald Trump should never have called it a hoax. But now, let's do this. I'm a big fan of Tony Hawk. I'm a skateboarder. You guys know this. I have a skateboard company, Boonies HQ. We've got new boards. We're doing a semi-monthly release of limited edition skateboards. I skate all the time. I got a skate park behind me. Tony Hawk, of course, is a legend. Not a vert skater. He doesn't have half pipes, but I can appreciate the tremendous things this man has done. In one of the leaked files, I should say released files, Tony Hawk is accused of being at a party on Epstein Island with a trafficking victim. And it's clearly and obviously false. Unfortunately for Tony Hawk, there are a lot of people who believe it because they don't know why and they don't understand why it's false. So what happens is, in an email, a person, I should say this, someone called the FBI tip line purporting to be a victim of Epstein's, saying they were 13 and they were trafficked to Epstein for awful things. And they were present on the island when Tony Hawk got married. This is an obvious false claim from someone who clearly doesn't understand what was actually going on. So what happened is actually quite simple. In 2006, Tony Hawk got married in Fiji. It was all over the press. It was Action Sports News. I believe MTV covered it. A photographer who works in action sports just so happens to be named Mark Epstein. That's the same name as Jeffrey Epstein's brother, but they're different people. Photos were released for the news coverage by a Mark Epstein in 2006 of Tony Hawk's wedding in Fiji. My presumption is someone saw photos of Tony Hawk on an island taken by a Mark Epstein and then called the FBI to lie and claim, because they presumed that was Epstein's brother on Epstein's island, that they were a victim, thinking it lended some credibility. Tony Hawk has come out and said, this is insane. I've never been to the island. I was married in Fiji in 2006. Everybody knows. To be fair, Tony Hawk's been married 4 times. Tony, come on. Well, you do you, brother. But this is the issue. This FBI Crime Stoppers phone call gets released, and there are people who don't know. The only thing they've heard is that Mark Epstein took photos at Tony Hawk's wedding on an island, and a trafficking victim says she was there. To someone who doesn't know much about Tony or know the ins and outs of this, or they don't follow him, they are now going around believing that Tony Hawk is an evil man. Guys, I got to tell you, with all due respect to Tony Hawk, he is as vanilla pudding as they come. I'm not trying to be a dick. Tony Hawk does Cunol commercials. He is not this rampaging partier crazy man. He's, and I say this with respect, Tony, as much as he's a skateboard guy, is a vanilla pudding corporate dude. The worst thing you can say about him that skateboarders say is he's a very corporate skateboarder. He's doing, he does the Go-Gurt commercial. I think he did a Go-Gurt commercial. Let me double check. Tony Hawk Go-Gurt commercial. I think he did. Did he? Yes, he did. Yeah, absolutely. Wait, hold on. I got, for real? Wait. No, maybe it's not Tony Hawk. Somebody was skateboarding. Okay, maybe he didn't do a Go-Gurt commercial. I like Go-Gurt anyway. Yogurt's delicious. Squeeze tubes. I thought he was. He wasn't in it? Okay, well, whatever. Okay, sorry, Tony. That was unintentional defamatory to say you were in a Go-Gurt commercial. The point is, the dude does Cunol commercials, and now he's being maligned in this way. And then we got this one. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm going to keep this one light. I'm not going to pull up the emails in greater detail. The Hadid sisters. Someone emailed Jeffrey Epstein asking how they became famous models. And he made a bunch of comments about them. Now, maybe these comments are true, but either way, they're not criminal. They're just extremely embarrassing and damaging to the Hadid sisters, implying they only got any access because they were willing to, let's just call it, provide services to men, which included, and I'll keep this as family-friendly as possible. How can I say this in a way? The accusation is that in order to gain access to this world, they had to let certain individuals come in through the back door. Yeah. That's the accusation. Now, this is extremely embarrassing. And the presumption people are making is that it's true. They're saying that that's how they did it, and Epstein was privy to this information. And these are just some of the innocent people being maligned. And, maybe I say innocent like they're not criminals. Now, again, hold your horses, because I'm not here to defend Donald Trump trying to hold back the documents. Like I said, to Roe O'Connor and Thomas Massie, I've backed them the whole way. To be fair, I pushed back on Roe because his blanket release the documents thing would have been a disaster. But I support them in everything they've been working on to legitimately get this done. The BBC reporting U.S. lawmakers accuse Justice Department of inappropriately redacting Epstein files. I'm here for it. Now, I see a ton of big Trump supporters ragging on Massie. Trump rags on Massie all day. I am not here to blindly march in lockstep with Donald Trump. I think he's the better option from Kamala Harris. I think the Democrats are wackaloon lunatics for the most part. But on this, Trump ain't getting... I will never play that game. And so here I am. And it's funny because with like the Bad Bunny halftime show stuff, I'm fairly ambivalent and critical of the whole thing. But it is clear to me that the only reason people are saying the Bad Bunny show is good is because it's a narrative machine they're trying to push. It's PR marketing. Agree with us. Shut your mouth. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and say that it was the worst show ever done. The production was pretty good. It was hard for people to connect with. My point is this, not to rehash all the halftime stuff, but that there are liberals running articles saying, Tim Pool defends MAGA, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my critique of Bad Bunny has nothing to do with whether MAGA is good or bad. But they live in this binary world. No. Trump does some things that are good, and he's kind of a kind of guy. You know what I mean? I think his family's wonderful, but I'm not going to hide my opinions or lie. And what I respect about Trump and his supporters largely is that I can disagree with them. I can criticize Donald Trump, and they'll argue back. Whereas the left just lies and pretends like I'm some MAGA hat wearing diehard Trump guy who's going to lie 24/7. There's a reality. And the reality is this. There are a lot of Epstein files that are wrongly redacted And I think the Trump DOJ needs to stop playing games. I don't care who it brings down. If they deserve to be brought down, so be it. The BBC reports. U.S. lawmakers say files related to Epstein were improperly redacted. Members of Congress on Monday were allowed to begin a review of the unredacted versions of the approximately 3 million pages. The core issue is that they're not complying with my law because these were scrubbed back in March by Donald Trump's FBI, Ro Khanna told MS Now. At least one document has been unredacted since the lawmakers' complaint. With Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying on X, the DOJ is committed to transparency. The files redactions came under scrutiny last week after lawmakers for Epstein's victims said the latest tranche of files included email addresses and nude photos in which the names and faces of potential victims could be identified. Survivors issued a statement calling the disclosure outrageous and said they should not be named, scrutinized, and re-traumatized. The DOJ said it had taken down all the flagged files and that mistakes were due to technical or human error. After viewing the unredacted documents, Massey and Khanna, who co-sponsored the bill, told reporters they had a list of about 20 people in which every name was redacted except for Epstein's and as convicted trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, associate. 6 of the names could even belong to men who likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files. These names were inappropriately redacted. In response to their concerns, Blanche said his department just unredacted all non-victim names from the document. The DOJ is committed to transparency. He linked to what appears to be a new version of the file, which he said contains the names of Epstein victims, whose identities in the EFTA law orders the government to conceal, with only 2 names now blacked out. Blanche also responded to 2 other files highlighted by Massey, saying those files do not obfuscate any substantive information. I will say this. There is one good reason some of these names are redacted. We don't want to be simpletons and just go, that email's incriminating and they redacted the name. They could be prosecuting the individual, which puts us between a rock and a hard place. I don't want to compromise any investigations into these awful people. There was an email that I shared. Actually, let me pull it up for you. I've been very critical of Pizzagate, but there are core elements that I think are true, that I think have been proven. Even, I think Bill Maher brought it up. Let me, I pulled this email from Jeffrey Epstein, emailed someone, it's redacted, and he literally just said pizza. I said, what an odd email to redact. That's it. What's wrong with the word pizza? Now, this has got 400,000 views. It got 2,000 retweets. There's an easy answer, and it's tough. But the easy answer is this may actually be evidence against someone, and it could corroborate Jeffrey Epstein and his ilk's use of the word pizza to refer to abusing children. There's no other reason to redact the name. There's literally none. Listen, if Epstein had emailed Donald Trump pizza, like if he emailed him like, let's get a pina colada, there's no reason to redact that. It's not incriminating nor embarrassing. Literally no reason. Jon Stewart's name appears. Robert De Niro's name appears. Colbert's name appears. There are a lot of people whose name pops up. The band All That Remains. Jeffrey Epstein got a Spotify music email, which included the release of one of Phil's albums, platinum song on it. And so All That Remains as the band. Actually, it doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. So why redact this? The challenge for us is that it may be because this is evidence against an individual, and if they release his name, it could compromise the trial. They wanted to release all the emails. They didn't want any gaps. So they did. I suppose the argument could be they should not have released this if it is evidence at all. But possibly the only evidence in it is the name, so they redacted it, which, it's tough. I want to know why they redacted it. What I will say is this of Pizzagate. Early on, someone created a fake post where they said pizza means boy and pasta means girl. That's made up. People slapped an FBI logo on an image and then shared it around, and people still share it to this day. That was fabricated, likely to throw people off the trail of what it actually is and means. CP, cheese pizza, is a reference to child abuse materials, in which case that's what he might be actually referencing. Considering some of the videos that have already emerged from the Epstein files of children that have been censored, creepy, I think that may be the case. Then, why did Donald Trump call it a hoax and say he didn't want to release this? That was a mistake, and it's disturbing. by all means, I can defend him and say Tony Hawk, the Hadid sisters, other people as well, don't want to be named in it. But they did get named in it. Not as criminals, but Tony Hawk, even though it's ridiculous, I can understand that. And Bongino pointed it out. There are a lot of uncorroborated things in here that are going to be damaging to innocent people who did nothing wrong. So why not, from the get-go, just say this, release these files, and then explain, if you see a redaction of a name, we are working on prosecutions, investigations, so please don't assume wrongdoing. They have mishandled this the whole way. And that's the problem. So, my friends, I can defend Donald Trump where I believe it makes sense. If you go back in time, it looks like he was not a fan of Epstein, and he did hang out with him, but so did many other individuals. Many more, even after he was convicted. Trump, not one of them. Even Elon. And I like Elon. A lot of emails between Elon, even though he said he never went to the island. We've got to cut through the noise to figure out what is true. And while Trump is no saint and certainly deserves a lot of criticism, I don't think it's true that he was doing Epstein stuff. And I'll wrap it up again by saying he's not handling this well. But you know what, my friends? We'll wrap it up there for you. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you've ever met in your life. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you. Thank you so much for hanging out. Share this video if you really do like it. Subscribe to this channel. I think we're bringing back the 4 p.m.s. You know, we switched out and we're going for a different. We're gonna make this channel a bit more robust with the Culture War podcast on Fridays, as well as a Monday through Thursday 4 p.m. OG show. This is the first show I ever launched, and we're bringing it back. So I appreciate everybody's been watching them. It's been doing really, really well, and thank you so much. Subscribe, share the video. Stay tuned. More to come, and we'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL.